The gleaming space station Concordia rotated slowly against the backdrop of stars, its massive ring structure housing representatives from over 50 alien species. It stood as the galaxy's neutral ground for diplomatic relations and interstellar justice. In the main judicial chamber, the cool blue light reflected off the polished surfaces, creating an atmosphere of detached authority. Magistrate June sat tall behind his elevated bench. His pale skin, characteristic of his Albidian species, seemed to glow under the chamber lights. The Albidians had administered galactic law for millennia, their white complexion and stoic demeanor becoming synonymous with justice itself across inhabited space. The court announcer's voice echoed through the chamber. The court calls Commander Dury of Earthfleet to stand before Magistrate June on charges of protocol violation. The doors slid open, and Commander Dury entered with confident strides. Her dark skin contrasted with the crisp lines of her blue Earthfleet uniform. She carried herself with military precision, her expression revealing nothing as she approached the defendant's position. The gallery stirred with whispers. Humans were relatively new to the galactic community, just 2 centuries since they developed faster than light travel. Many older species still viewed them with suspicion or curiosity. Commander Dury, Magistrate June began, his voice calm and measured, you stand accused of accessing restricted diplomatic channels during the arrival of the Centauri delegation yesterday. Station logs show your personal code was used to breach secure communications during a Category 1 diplomatic event. How do you respond to these charges? Dury stood at perfect attention. Not guilty, Magistrate. I was responding to an emergency signal from within the diplomatic section. June's pale fingers tapped the control panel before him, bringing up holographic displays visible only to him. Station security recorded no emergency signals during that time frame. The signal was transmitted on an encrypted Earthfleet frequency, Magistrate, Dury explained. It wouldn't appear on standard station monitoring systems. June's expression hardened slightly. Convenient that this alleged emergency used communications that cannot be verified by this court. I can provide the decryption codes to security if required, Dury offered. After the fact? That would hardly constitute evidence. June shook his head. What was the nature of this supposed emergency? I'm not at liberty to disclose that information without proper clearance, Magistrate. It involves matters of Earth security protocols. The whispers in the gallery grew louder. An older Albidian observer muttered about typical human excuses, loud enough for those nearby to hear. June raised his hand for silence. Commander Dury, this station operates under galactic common law. Your Earth protocols do not supersede the authority of this court. I ask again. What was the nature of the emergency? Dury paused before answering. I can only say that I received information suggesting a possible threat to the safety of multiple delegations. And did you report this threat through proper station security channels? There wasn't time, Magistrate. The situation required immediate action. June's expression remained unchanged, but his voice took on a colder tone. So you took it upon yourself to bypass station security protocols, access restricted diplomatic channels during a sensitive exchange, potentially compromising relations with the Centauri, all based on an emergency only you can verify? The commander stood her ground. I acted according to my training and the information available to me at the time. June studied her for a long moment. The chamber had fallen completely silent now, spectators from dozens of species watching the exchange with interest. Humans were known for their unpredictability, which made them both valuable allies and concerning neighbors in galactic politics. This court cannot accept unverifiable claims as defense against documented violations, June finally stated. The evidence clearly shows you accessed restricted systems without authorization. Section 17 of the Concordia Protocols leaves no room for interpretation in such matters. Dury's expression remained neutral, though her posture seemed to stiffen slightly. Given your military rank and the sensitive nature of interspecies diplomacy, June continued, I am imposing a fine of 50,000 credits to be paid before your departure from this station. Consider yourself fortunate that diplomatic incidents require discretion, or the penalty might involve detention. The spectators murmured their approval. The Albidian justice system was known for its rigid application of law, a stability many species found comforting in the chaos of interstellar relations.
Does the defendant wish to make a statement before judgment is final? June asked, a procedural courtesy.
Durie looked directly at him, her dark eyes meeting his pale ones without flinching.
The fine will be paid, magistrate.
June nodded, ready to dismiss the case, when Durie continued speaking. However, I would respectfully suggest that the magistrate review Interstellar Code 459b when time permits. It may prove relevant to our interaction today.
June frowned slightly. He had memorized all 3,428 interstellar laws currently recognized by the Galactic Council, and he couldn't recall anything significant about 459b. The reference bothered him. It felt like the human was implying he had missed something important. This court is adjourned, June declared, tapping his bench formally. The fine is due within 48 standard hours.
Commander Durie bowed slightly, a human gesture of respect, before turning to leave the chamber.
June couldn't help but notice she didn't seem concerned about the substantial fine.
Something about her demeanor suggested she had expected this outcome. After the chamber cleared, June remained at his bench, quickly accessing the legal database through his neural interface. He searched for Code 459b but found nothing of significance, just a minor regulation about diplomatic communication protocols in emergencies.
Later that evening, June walked along the curved observation deck of the station, watching the stars through the massive viewports.
The case continued to nag at him.
Humans were new to space, yes, but they had gained influence rapidly.
Their adaptability made them valuable members of the galactic community, if sometimes frustrating to deal with.
Troubled by today's case, Magistrate, a voice asked.
June turned to find his colleague, Magistrate Han, approaching. Her white Albidian features were set in a friendly expression.
The human commander, June admitted.
Something feels unresolved.
Humans often have that effect, Han said with a slight smile. They operate on intuition as much as logic. It makes them unpredictable.
She referenced a code that doesn't seem relevant to her case.
Why would she do that? Han shrugged. Perhaps to appear knowledgeable? Humans are still establishing their place in galactic society.
They often try to demonstrate competence beyond their years.
June nodded, but remained unconvinced. Commander Durie hadn't seemed like someone grasping for status.
She had carried herself with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was doing.
Perhaps I should look into her background, June said quietly. Don't let one human occupy too much of your thoughts, Han advised. We have the Galactic Summit beginning tomorrow. 53 species representatives will be arriving, and the judicial team needs to be prepared for any disputes. June nodded, but as Han walked away, he found himself accessing the station's personnel database, searching for more information on Commander Durie of Earth Fleet.
The limited public record showed her as a mid-level officer with security clearance, nothing unusual. Yet the way she had mentioned Code 459b felt deliberate, like a message he was meant to understand. As the stars continued their slow parade past the viewport, June couldn't shake the feeling that there was much more to Commander Durie than his court had seen today. The artificial dawn cycle began on Concordia Station, illuminating its curved corridors with soft golden light. In the exclusive dining hall reserved for judicial officials, Magistrate June sat across from his longtime colleague, Magistrate Tay. Both Albidians enjoyed their traditional morning meal of nutrient crystals dissolved in warm water, a practice their species had maintained for thousands of years. The human paid her fine promptly, June remarked, checking the notification on his tablet.
50,000 credits, transferred without complaint. Tay nodded approvingly, his white fingers tapping lightly against the table's polished surface. As expected. Humans understand power structures, if nothing else. Something still bothers me about the case, June admitted.
Her mention of Code 459b seems deliberate, yet I can find no significant regulation under that designation. Humans often bluff, Tay said dismissively. 2 centuries in space has given them confidence beyond their experience.
They reference codes and precedents hoping we won't check their accuracy. Perhaps, June conceded, though doubt lingered in his mind. Still, Commander Durie didn't strike me as someone who would bluff pointlessly.
All humans appear confident to our eyes, Tay replied with a small gesture that indicated mild amusement.
It's their nature, loud, expressive, always in motion.
Their species barely unified their home planet before launching into space. Compare that to our 5 millennia of calculated galactic diplomacy. June nodded absently, scrolling through his tablet.
I've requested access to her complete service record.
Tay paused, setting down his drinking vessel.
That seems excessive for a routine protocol violation.
I cannot explain why, but this case feels important, June said. The timing, with the summit beginning today.
You're overthinking this, Tay interrupted gently. One human officer broke protocol and received standard punishment.
The system worked as designed. Their conversation was interrupted by a notification chime. June checked his tablet and frowned.
Request denied. Commander Durie's complete record requires Alpha-level security clearance.
Alpha level? Tay leaned forward with sudden interest. That's unusually high for a mid-rank officer.
Indeed, June agreed. Most fleet commanders have gamma clearance at most.
Perhaps she works in intelligence, Tay suggested.
Earth has been aggressive about establishing their information networks.
June closed his tablet with a decisive motion.
I believe I'll attend the summit opening ceremony today.
Perhaps observing the Earth delegation might provide some context. Just be careful, Tay warned. The Council doesn't appreciate judicial officials becoming too involved in diplomatic matters.
Our role is to interpret law, not create it.
Of course, June assured him.
Merely professional curiosity.
16 levels below, in the secure quarters assigned to Earth's delegation, Commander Durie sat before a communication terminal. The screen glowed with the Earth fleet insignia as she waited for her encrypted connection to establish. The screen flickered, revealing Admiral Min's weathered face.
His eyes looked tired, the result of managing Earth's complex position in galactic politics. Commander, report, he ordered without preamble.
The fine has been paid, Admiral, Durie said. And the reference to 459B was placed directly with Magistrate June, as instructed.
Any immediate reaction?
Hard to tell with Albidians, sir. They maintain rigid control over their expressions. But he seemed puzzled.
The Admiral nodded slowly. Good. Curiosity is what we need right now. The Albidians pride themselves on legal expertise. He won't rest until he understands the reference.
May I ask a question, sir?
Durie ventured. Proceed. Why not simply approach the Albidian delegation directly about the Harmonic Accord? Why this indirect method? Admiral Min sighed. Politics, Commander. The Albidian leadership has publicly dismissed the accord as premature human overreach.
But individual Albidians, especially those who work closely with multiple species, might be more receptive.
Magistrate June has a reputation for fairness, despite his traditional background. Durie nodded. And my security clearance?
He's already attempted to access my full record. As expected, Min said with a hint of satisfaction.
The Alpha clearance will only intrigue him further. Sometimes the best way past rigid thinking is to present a puzzle. The summit security measures are in place? Durie asked, changing topics. Yes, though I'm concerned about the Regelian sector. Their delegates arrived with twice the usual security detail. I'll monitor the situation, Durie promised.
As the communication ended, Durie moved to her personal storage unit and retrieved a small case.
Inside rested a formal diplomatic uniform rather than her military attire.
She changed quickly, the deep blue fabric decorated with subtle Earth insignia marking her as part of the official delegation rather than simple security personnel. In another part of the station, Magistrate June passed through multiple security checkpoints to reach the grand concourse where the summit would begin. The massive circular chamber had been transformed for the occasion, with designated areas for each participating species and a central platform for speakers.
June noticed the Earth delegation immediately.
Unlike many species who clustered together, the humans spread throughout the room, engaging with various representatives. Their natural sociability, sometimes dismissed as shallow by older species, served them well in diplomatic settings. He spotted Commander Dury among them, now dressed in formal diplomatic attire. She moved with purpose, speaking briefly with representatives from several systems before joining a serious conversation with the Proxima delegates. June watched with growing curiosity. Her role seemed far more significant than her military rank had suggested. "Interesting choice of observation," a voice commented beside him. June turned to find Elder Representative Sook of the Galactic Council standing nearby. The senior Albidian diplomat observed the crowd with practiced ease. "Elder Sook," June greeted her with appropriate deference. "I'm merely observing the interactions before the summit begins." "Yet your gaze returns repeatedly to the Earth delegation," she noted. "Particularly to Commander Dury, whom I believe appeared in your court yesterday." June maintained his composure, though he was surprised by her knowledge of the case. "You're well informed about routine protocol violations." "When they involve key diplomatic personnel before a major summit, yes," Sook replied. Her tone remained pleasant, but June sensed disapproval beneath her words. "Key personnel?" June questioned. "Commander Dury's record indicates a mid-level security position." Sook gave him a measured look. "Not all records tell complete stories, Magistrate. Especially when it comes to humans." She paused. "The Albidian diplomatic position regarding Earth's recent initiatives remains clear. I trust the judiciary maintains appropriate neutrality." "The law is applied equally to all species," June assured her with formal correctness. "See that it remains so," Sook said before moving away to greet arriving dignitaries. June watched her go, his confusion deepening. The interaction suggested Commander Dury held significance beyond her apparent role and that the Albidian diplomatic corps was concerned about her activities. His attention was drawn to a commotion near the Rigelian delegation. Security personnel were arguing with summit staff about weapons protocols. June noticed Commander Dury observing the situation carefully, her hand subtly touching her communication device. As June watched, he saw something that struck him as odd: a brief hand signal exchanged between Dury and a Centauri representative across the room. The Centauri immediately moved toward the Earth delegation leader, whispering something urgent. The pieces refused to form a coherent picture. A military officer with diplomatic status and alpha-level clearance. Coded communications with multiple species. Reference to an obscure regulation that seemed to exist nowhere in the official records. June made a decision. He would need to speak with Commander Dury directly away from the formal constraints of the courtroom. Something significant was developing, and he increasingly suspected that the protocol violation had been merely the surface of a much deeper matter. As delegates took their places for the opening ceremony, June slipped away from the judicial observation area. The summit would last for 3 days. He had time to solve the puzzle that Commander Dury represented and why his own diplomatic leadership seemed concerned about her influence. The Grand Concourse of Concordia Station buzzed with activity as the first day of the summit progressed. Delegates from 37 species moved through the space, forming temporary alliances and discussing trade agreements. Floating translation devices hovered near groups of different species, converting the various languages, clicks, and telepathic impressions into understandable communication. Magistrate June observed from the judicial balcony, his eyes repeatedly finding Commander Dury among the crowd. She moved with purpose, now clearly functioning as more than simple security personnel. June noticed how representatives from younger spacefaring nations sought her out, engaging in brief but intense conversations. "Magistrate June," a voice called from behind. "This is an unexpected pleasure." June turned to find Taro, the head of station security, approaching. The human officer extended his hand in the traditional Earth greeting. "Officer Taro," June replied, accepting the handshake after a moment's hesitation. "I'm observing the summit proceedings with interest." "Of course," Taro said with a smile. "Though I notice your observation seems focused on specific participants." June didn't deny it. Commander Dury's case yesterday raised questions. Her diplomatic access seems extensive for someone who described herself as military personnel in my court. Taro's expression remained neutral. Commander Durie's responsibilities are multifaceted. So I'm beginning to understand, June replied. Perhaps you could clarify. The conversation was interrupted by a soft chime from Taro's communication device. He checked it quickly, his expression changing to concern. If you'll excuse me, Magistrate. Security matter. June nodded and watched Taro move swiftly toward a service exit. Something was happening behind the scenes of this summit, something beyond the usual diplomatic maneuvering. The main lighting in the concourse dimmed slightly, indicating the start of the afternoon session. June took his assigned seat in the judicial observation section as delegates moved toward the central speaking area. The Earth delegation settled into their position directly across from the Albidian representatives, a placement that felt deliberate rather than coincidental. The chief moderator, a respected Proxima diplomat, approached the central podium. Distinguished delegates, we reconvene to discuss the proposed amendments to the Galactic Trade Accords. The floor recognizes Elder Representative Sook of the Albidian Federation. Sook rose gracefully, her white features composed as she approached the podium. Honored representatives, the Albidian Federation has maintained the legal framework of galactic commerce for 3 millennia. The proposed amendments from Earth represent an unnecessary disruption to a functioning system. June noticed Commander Durie leaning forward slightly, watching Sook with intense focus. While we welcome Earth's growing participation in galactic affairs, Sook continued, their limited experience makes their proposed harmonic trade protocols premature at best, dangerous at worst. June straightened in his seat. The harmonic protocols, could this be connected to the mysterious 459b Durie had mentioned? Before Sook could continue, the emergency alert system activated with a piercing tone. Red lights flashed throughout the concourse as the station's AI voice announced, warning. Environmental systems compromised in sections 12 through 17. Potential atmospheric contamination detected. Please remain calm and. The message cut off abruptly as the main lights failed. The concourse plunged into darkness except for the flashing red emergency lights. Shouts of alarm rose from various delegations as backup systems struggled to activate. June rose from his seat, trying to assess the situation through the confusion. The emergency lighting cast strange shadows across the concourse, making it difficult to distinguish shapes. Delegates crowded toward exits while security personnel shouted instructions that were lost in the chaos. Something slammed into June from behind, sending him sprawling forward. He fell hard against the floor, pain radiating through his shoulder. As he tried to rise, the panicked crowd surged around him, threatening to trample anyone who had fallen. A strong hand gripped his arm, pulling him upright. Stay close to me, Magistrate. June found Commander Durie beside him, her expression focused and alert. She had drawn a small weapon that June recognized as an Earthfleet stunner. What's happening? June demanded. Someone's trying to breach the environmental controls, Durie replied tersely, guiding him toward a service corridor away from the main crowd. The power failure isn't accidental. How do you know this? Before she could answer, the door ahead burst open. 3 figures in environmental suits rushed through, their faces obscured by reflective masks. They carried cylindrical devices that June didn't recognize. Down! Durie shouted, pushing June against the wall while raising her weapon. The stunner discharged with a sharp buzz. One of the suited figures crumpled to the floor. The others turned toward Durie and June, raising their cylinders threateningly. Emergency Protocol Sierra, Durie called out clearly. Suddenly, the corridor filled with Earth security personnel who seemed to materialize from hidden positions. The remaining intruders were quickly overwhelmed and restrained. Take them to secure holding, Durie ordered. And get those devices to containment, level 9 protocols. June watched in astonishment as the Earth security team operated with practiced efficiency, securing the area and removing both the unconscious attackers and their mysterious devices. You were prepared for this, June said, realization dawning. This is why you accessed the restricted channels yesterday. Durie nodded, holstering her weapon. We received intelligence about a possible attack during the summit. I was verifying the security breach points when your station security flagged my access. Before June could respond, his communication device signaled an urgent message. It was a station-wide alert for judicial officers to report to Emergency Briefing Room 1 immediately. "You should go," Dury said. "The council will need judicial representation during the crisis response." "And you?" June asked. "I have other responsibilities," she replied, already moving down the corridor in the opposite direction. 2 hours later, June sat in stunned silence as the emergency briefing concluded. The station's chief of security had just confirmed that someone had attempted to release a highly sophisticated neurotoxin into the ventilation system serving the delegates' quarters. If successful, the attack would have killed representatives from at least 20 species while they slept. The quick action of Earth's security team prevented catastrophe, the security chief explained. Particularly Commander Dury's pre-positioning of personnel based on intelligence they had gathered. The door to the briefing room slid open, and Elder Representative Sook entered, accompanied by the highest-ranking members of the Galactic Council. The assembled officers and officials rose respectfully. "This emergency session of the Combined Judicial and Security Council will now begin," announced the Council Secretary. "Please be seated." June took his place at the Judicial Representatives' table, noticing with surprise that Commander Dury was being escorted into the room. Rather than joining the security personnel, she was directed to the main table alongside the senior council members. Elder Sook's expression remained carefully neutral, though June detected tension in her posture. In light of today's events, the council has determined that a full briefing on the Harmonic Accord is necessary. June glanced around the room, seeing confusion on many faces that matched his own. The Harmonic Accord? The term had been mentioned only in passing during trade discussions. For those unfamiliar, Sook continued, the Harmonic Accord represents a proposed restructuring of galactic legal and security frameworks. While the Albidian Federation has expressed reservations about its implementation timeline, today's events suggest we must consider its security provisions with greater urgency. She gestured toward Commander Dury. The Council recognizes Dr. Nara Dury, Principal Architect of the Harmonic Accord. June nearly forgot his Albidian composure. Doctor? Principal Architect? He watched as Dury rose and approached the central position. "Thank you, Elder Representative," she said calmly. "As today's events demonstrate, our current security protocols contain significant vulnerabilities. The Harmonic Accord addresses these through integrated multi-species approaches rather than the siloed systems currently in place." As Dury continued her presentation, displaying complex security and legal frameworks on the room's holographic projectors, June finally understood. The commander he had fined for a protocol violation was actually one of Earth's leading legal architects, working to reshape the very foundations of galactic governance. The mysterious Code 459b suddenly made sense. It wasn't a legal code at all, but likely a reference to her work that she had wanted him to discover. And he had dismissed her as a simple rulebreaker. The emergency session stretched late into the station's night cycle. Magistrate June sat silently as Dr. Dury concluded her presentation on the Harmonic Accord. The holographic display showed complex diagrams of interconnected legal and security systems, a complete reimagining of how galactic governance might function. The current system was designed 5 millennia ago, Dr. Dury explained. It served well when interstellar travel was limited to a handful of species. But with 37 spacefaring civilizations now regularly interacting, its weaknesses have become critical. Elder Sook leaned forward. The Albidian Federation has maintained galactic peace through consistent application of established law. Your accord would disrupt centuries of stability. With respect, Elder, Dury replied calmly, today's attack demonstrates that our definition of stability may be outdated. The attackers used knowledge of our separate security systems to exploit gaps between them. June studied the faces around the room. The younger species representatives nodded in agreement with Dury, while the established powers, particularly the Albidians and Centauri, maintained skeptical expressions. When the session finally adjourned, June found himself walking the quiet corridors of the diplomatic level. Sleep seemed impossible with his mind racing through the implications of what he'd learned. The Harmonic Accord represented a fundamental shift in how species would interact, reducing the traditional Albidian role as primary arbiters of galactic law. Magistrate June, a voice called softly.
June turned to find Dr. Dury approaching along the curved corridor.
She had changed from her formal attire into simpler clothing, though she still carried herself with the same confident posture.
Dr. Dury, June acknowledged. I believe I owe you an apology.
Had I known your position,
you would have applied the law differently, she interrupted. That's precisely the problem the Accord addresses. Justice shouldn't depend on rank or position. June considered this. Perhaps not.
But context matters in legal decisions.
Your actions were protecting the station, information I didn't have when rendering judgment. Walk with me? Dury suggested, gesturing toward the observation deck.
They walked in silence until reaching the vast transparent wall that offered a view of the surrounding stars. The station's rotation created a slow parade of constellations across the viewport.
Code 459B, June said finally. It's not a legal statute at all, is it? Dury smiled slightly.
It's the classification number of my doctoral dissertation, Harmonic Legal Theory in Multispecies Governance. The foundation for what became the Accord.
You wanted me to investigate you, June realized. We needed to open dialogue with influential Albidian judicial officers, Dury admitted.
Your species leadership has blocked formal discussion of the Accord for 3 years. But individual Albidians, especially those who work directly with multiple species,
might be more receptive, June finished. So the protocol violation was deliberate?
The emergency was real, Dury corrected. But I could have used official channels.
I chose a method I knew would bring me before an Albidian magistrate. June felt a mixture of irritation and reluctant admiration. An elaborate way to start a conversation.
Sometimes the hardest part of change is beginning the dialogue, Dury said, gazing out at the stars. Especially with species who pride themselves on tradition. Before June could respond, his communication device signaled an incoming message. He checked it and felt a chill run through him.
What is it? Dury asked, noticing his reaction.